James for the untouchable, true school sports. Let's go, baby. Bow!
Be careful what you wish for because it can become a reality.
Yeah. The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. All right, so a couple weeks ago, one of the fighters that has me the most excited, not just from Japan, but in the welterweight division, is none other than Jin Sasaki. He fought on the undercard of Inoue Doheny. He fought the very tough, very game, and very formidable Australian Kwame Obala. And he had a tough fight. He won. He wound up stopping Kwame Obala in the 7th round. But I never had a chance to really get around to talking about Jin Sasaki because he's a fighter that he's really interesting because, you know, you guys know I love Japanese boxing. But he's interesting because a lot of times with Japanese fighters, you know, they tend to be in the smaller weight classes, you know, like featherweight, bantamweight, flyweight, super flyweight, light flyweight, minimum. Like those are the Japanese weight classes. You know, he's really on the precipice of greatness because he's trying to make a bid to become Japan's first ever welterweight champion. So let's talk about him for a second because he's a fighter that I think as more people come to know who he is, he's going to inject a lot of life back into the welterweight division. He's going to be a fighter that people want to see fight. You know, he's not as technically sound as a lot of other guys. He does get hit a lot, but he's very explosive and he makes for an exciting fight. And at the end of the day, people do want to be entertained when they watch boxing. So with that being said, with that firmly being established here on True School Sports, Jin Sasaki had a tough outing against Kwame Obala. Bala did give him some resistance because Kwame is a bigger welterweight. He's like 5'10", damn near 5'11", wide build, comes forward, makes the fight happen. And he's a guy that, you know, with Jin Sasaki, and I think Sasaki's still very much young. He's still very much a fighter that's in development as much as he is a contender. He's only, I believe Sasaki is no older than 23 or 24 years old. He is 23 right now. So I think defensively he's going to have to work on cleaning some things up because, you know, he's been dropped before and he was pushing this fight. I mean, he was winning at the time of the stoppage, but, you know, two judges had it 58-55 in favor of Jin Sasaki. The other judge had it 56-57 for Jin Sasaki. So he was getting some resistance from Bala. But luckily for him, one thing about Jin Sasaki, you may be able to dish it with him, but when he dishes it back, can you take it? You know, if you're a fighter that can't match his athleticism and explosiveness, you got to find ways to offset that. And if you can't, odds are is you're going to get knocked the hell out. And that's what happened to Kwame Obala. He got stopped in the 7th round. And Jin Sasaki now runs his record up to 18-1-1 with 17 knockouts. So let's talk about him because right now as it stands, he is probably, I would say, no more than 2 fights away from a world title shot because right now, first of all, he's ranked in the top 5 of all 4 sanctioning bodies. And in this day and age of boxing where you can, you know, maneuver and finesse your way into the rankings, to be not just ranked in all 4 sanctioning bodies, but in the top 5 of all 4 sanctioning bodies, that should tell you about the credibility of Jin Sasaki and what he's done in his career and who he's beaten. And he's beaten some good guys domestically in Japan and earned his spot in the rankings, especially in this welterweight division that really and truthfully isn't that great right now. So he's number 4 in the WBC, WBA, and IBF. Number 4 in all those sanctioning bodies. But his highest ranking position comes in the form of the WBO ranking. He's ranked number 3 in the WBO rankings. Now, personally, I'll just be honest. I don't think he's going to fight Jaron Ennis. I have good reason to believe why he won't fight Jaron Ennis, but I'll keep that to myself. Number 4 is Stanionis. I don't think he's fighting Stanionis. I think Stanionis winds up fighting Shakram Giyashov. And then probably after he fights Giyashov, the winner of that fight probably takes a voluntary defense. So I don't think he's going that route either. And then Barrios is fighting Abel Ramos. Barrios, I don't think, fights Jin Sasaki because Barrios is going to fight guys within the PBC stable, or he's going to fight fighters that, you know, are big enough to fight outside of PBC. I don't think Jin Sasaki right now, unless, you know, they give him a bunch of money to come to Japan, I don't think that's good enough. That's going to be enough to entice Barrios to fight Jin Sasaki. So the route I ultimately think Jin Sasaki is going to go is the WBO route, and I firmly believe, and I will stay on this stance. I think he's on a collision course with Brian Norman Jr. I think that's a fight that is good. As long as they will keep winning, is going to happen. Now, it is worth noting Shop's going the WBA route. He's the number one in the WBO. So let's just get him out the way. Sasaki's not fighting him. Number 2 is Alexis Rocha. And I've talked to Rocha personally. I interviewed him here on the channel. He stated himself that he would like to fight Jin Sasaki, that he would welcome that fight. But just because he wants that fight, I don't know if Golden Boy Promotions is going to go ahead and make that fight. Is that the fight that they allow him to have? You know, I don't know. So I just don't foresee Sasaki versus Rocha. So I think I'll put it to y'all like this. I think Jin Sasaki probably takes maybe like a guy in the lower top 15, or I don't know what he'll do. He'll fight someone to get a win. He'll fight someone that's you know, to stay busy. I think if he wins the next fight, and I think if Brian Norman Jr. is the next fight, I think in the first 6 to 8 months of 2025, one of the fights you get in this division is going to be Brian Norman Jr. versus Jin Sasaki. And I think that's a banger of a fight. I think that's an amazing fight. You know, there's a lot of ways that could go. You know, Brian Norman Jr. Isn't against going to people's hometowns. He actually says he thrives off that. So if the Japanese and Mr. Honda and the fine folks in Japan put up enough money for that fight in Japan, as we, you know, I think that the Normans would entice it. I think the Normans would entertain that fight. And it's a fight that I'm sure they're going to be confident they can win, because Norman struggles with guys that could, like, you know, move and counterpunch. Sasaki's not like a mover and a counterpuncher. He's a guy that's very explosive, that's going to look to bring the fight to Norman, which is what Norman wants, because Norman's a very strong individual himself. He's going to want to use his physical strength and his punching power and his creative, you know, punch selection. Because he does, I'll give Norman that. He's got a very creative punch selection. If you look at the way he knocked out the Santian, it was a brutal, very creative just punch selection that did it, you know. So I think Sasaki versus Norman happens in 2025. I think Sasaki versus Norman is a great fight for the division. I think Jin Sasaki versus Brian Norman Jr. is one of the most entertaining fights that can be made in the welterweight division. And there'd be a lot at stake there. You know, if Norman is to be successful against Cuevas, Norman would be making his second title defense. Sasaki would be making a bid to become the first Japanese welterweight champion. That fight only happens in 2 places. That fight either happens in Japan or it happens in Atlanta. Maybe Top Rank decides to give Brian Norman Jr. a show in Atlanta and bring Jin Sasaki to Atlanta. But the dollars got to make sense. And I think ultimately where the most dollars could be made for this fight is not in Atlanta. It would be in Japan. But we'll see. But either way you cut it up, slice and dice. I'm just getting out in front of it now, because I can look at the landscape and I can predict fighters' moves before their teams can even predict their own moves. And I just don't think he's going to go the WBC, IBF, or WBA route. So the clearest path to make a fight is the WBO route. He really, honestly, the way I look at Sasaki in the WBO is I already look at him as a mandatory challenger, because, like, Giashov is not going to fight for the WBO title. He's going to fight standing up for the WBA. So he's not in the picture to me. And then Rocha, I mean, maybe Golden Boy does make that fight, but I just think there's other ways they can go. There's other fights they can make for Rocha. You know, I think they can still use Rocha potentially for other, like, just other guys like Raul Correa versus Virgil could be a fight they make. You know, he's another Golden Boy welterweight prospect, or contender, I should say. So I don't think Sasaki versus Rocha is just in the best interest of Golden Boy Promotions. They're not going to do it. So in my mind, he's sitting there at number 3. Yes, he is sitting there at number 3. But because of how the landscape is, I look at Jin Sasaki in the like de facto sense. He's already the mandatory challenger for the WBO. That's how I'm looking at him. And I think all that has to happen is Brian Norman beat Derek Cuevas and Jin Sasaki just stay busy and win a fight. And we're getting that fight next year in 2025. And I think boxing fans are going to win that fight. I think the welterweight, that's actually one of the fights that, apart from Boots versus Norman, I think could really inject some life into the damn division. So I'm looking forward to it in advance. It'll be really explosive for as long as it lasts. I think both fighters going into that fight have a lot to correct, because they're both really explosive and they're both equally leaky on their defense. So whoever is able to tighten their defense up more and land their shots first in that fight, that's who wins. But yeah, that's what I think is gonna happen in 2025. So let me know what you guys think. Give me your preliminary thoughts on, you know, what do you think of Jin Sasaki versus Brian Norman Jr. in 2025 if it does happen? Because I think it is going to happen. I can look at the rankings and just see it from a mile away. But leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me. But I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on The Untouchable True School Sports Empire. I'm at the Boxing Hall of Fame out here in Canterfield, New York. And for more great boxing content just like this video, make sure you click and subscribe right over here.